All right. Hello, everybody. Yes. So I'm really excited because I have a guest here who has created something, Paula Connor, her name is. She's created something that there is a need for now more than ever. And as the old world continues to crumble and unravel, and, you know, people watch what they once thought was normal start becoming really abnormal, a lot of stress hormones, a lot of panic, a lot of the unknown starts to sink in, and people get into really negative states of being, really creating massive cortisol spikes. And that does nothing but hurt themselves. And unfortunately, the way most of us have been living is in full addiction to the chemicals that our body creates. And the addiction to the body, that feeling is a negative pleasure, you could say. It's like you're looking for things that are going to stimulate that feeling of cortisol rush because you're addicted to it, essentially. So she's created something called Mind Your Mind series that is literally it's a course, but it helps somebody going from not really understanding what coherence is. It's for everybody, no matter what level of awareness you categorize yourself as, the beginner or the expert. There's something in it for everybody. But essentially, for those who are unaware of what heart-brain coherence is, what the benefits of it are, how to recognize when you go unconscious and into a stress loop or a pattern where you just get carried away. She has taken all of this and put it into a very linear, step-by-step way of explaining all this stuff so that people can get it and recognize how the patterns of this, the mental and emotional patterns that they feel in their own life. And you start to get good at catching yourself doing it, and you reverse that negative pleasure addiction into one of loving peacefulness, loving calmness, being in a state of heart-brain coherence where you feel the good feelings that your body makes. It doesn't just make stress hormones, it makes feel-good chemicals. It's alchemy. It's literally changing your body chemistry to one that reflects the way you want to feel. So that was a long intro, but I wanted to get a lot of that stuff out so people could really kind of have an idea of how amazing this course is, how comprehensive it is, and also the simplicity in which you lay it out. So
Thank you. That
welcome,
was
Paula.
thank you. And thank you to your community. It's very nice to be here. I'm very honored and very grateful. Yeah.
Oh, let me just say too, one more thing. And for everybody, Laura, this is Laura Eisenhower. We share this platform. So I want to give a shout out to Laura, obviously, and thank her for letting Paula come on. So
Yeah, and of course, as you know, Laura and I have done a couple of the Divine Feminine roundtables together. I'm so grateful for it. It's lovely to know her. And of course, she's busy being a mama to baby goats right now.
I know.
Yeah, that was so sad to hear that, but what
Mm.
adorable little beings they are, and how lucky they are to have her as the surrogate mama.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on. And yeah, I created it so it'd be kind of like a map, right? Because we hear about how do you get out of a negative funk? How do you get out of that spiral of despair, as I like to call it, when you're used to all of those cortisol shots and that negative cortisol addiction? Because it can be actually an addiction. And what we learn sometimes with folks is that it can be uncomfortable to feel good when you're used to needing that. You need those stress hormones. Oh, I function better when I'm under stress. Well, it's a perceived idea of functioning better under stress, but not really. And it's almost kind of like in our world, it's a bit of a badge of honor now, how much of a burden and how overwhelmed you can be. And we don't want that, because the human being wasn't constructed to be in a state of anger or stress all the time. We were constructed to be in a state of joy and creativity and operating from the heart, as opposed to the logical small self ego mind, which can play tricks on us. right? The mind, they call it.
Yeah. And that we've been,
Go ahead.
it's socially engineered, right? Most of everything of who people think they are was taught to us. It's social engineering. It's been conditioned into us. And so we think we are somebody that we're not. It's
Yeah,
really
somebody else's
crazy.
idea. When we arrived, somebody else said, you're either handsome or you're attractive, based on what Hollywood or, you know, some external entity deems as that way, right? Or, you
Yeah.
know, yeah, where which is really just an idea. But
Yeah.
as we know, like from birth to 8 years old, they say, you know, give me the child, or give me the boy until 8, and I'll give you the man. All of that stuff is molded from the time that we're literal. We're told, yes, you can do this. No, you can't. Yes, you are this. No, you're not this. Or yes, you'll be successful. No, you aren't. And of course, the biggest, I want to say, trickster in this whole reality is the idea that you have to see it to believe it. And that's not true. You have to imagine it. You have to
The
create it.
opposite. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that was, I'm pretty sure actually that was by design, so that we as a collective would keep on creating what perhaps those that are running the show or were running the show desired. And so I thought it would be really important to create a map that was practical and useful. And as you said, it didn't matter whether or not you're a seasoned seeker. And because I have had feedback from a couple of people that said, oh, I know all of this. And it's true. Yeah. All of this, I mean, this has been pulled through my own life experience, all of the courses I've taken and the books that I've read and the work that I've done on my own. But this is really, how do you get from a negative outlook where you could be spinning, where, like, if you think about it, if some stranger can come along that you don't know and say something to you and do something to you that can cause you to be angry and pull you off your kilter, you are like a mouse in a mousetrap with a cat. You're a puppet. We can be puppeted so easily if we can be disturbed or disrupted by a trigger. So this is really about, how do you master the mind so you can become, so it can become a servant of the heart. Because we need more heart in this world. If we had more heart in this world, we wouldn't be treating each other the way that we're doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
it's like people live like they have forgotten that there's a body underneath their head. I mean, people are that in their head, like, just, and it's like, we have a whole body here. And when you are consciously embodying or being in your whole body, it's a very different experience than just being in your prefrontal cortex, thinking you're whoever you think you are, doing whatever you think you're doing. And it takes reconditioning, mental disinfectant reconditioning. You have to like retrain yourself to just calm down, get into a state of being there, and then recognize it so that you can remember it. You can memorize that state. And then that helps you, that's practice. And that helps you to stay there more and more. So
exactly. And that way, when somebody does come along and says something, you're like, whatever. Not my stuff.
Your triggers, that I love that. You're absolutely right. Because when people try to trigger you, or the things that used to trigger you, once you get really good at being in a harmonious state of being, those things don't trigger you the same way that they once did.
No, you're right. And actually, when you reflect on it, you're like, wow, that was kind of petty. Why would I even, like, that's so, I don't want to say juvenile, but it's all, when you start to reflect on how the way you might have reacted before, and you start moving into responding just long enough to take a breath and go, okay, how do I want this to end? Where do I want this encounter or altercation to go? Because if we begin, as Stephen Covey would say, if we begin with the end in mind, what's the end result I want from this? If we can do that in the moment by just taking a pause and a breath, then we don't create a bit of a shit show, for the lack of a better word, right? We don't create this outcome that's like, that is not what I wanted. So, empowerment of the mind, mind care, mind health. And it's almost like, you don't want to say brainwash, but you really need to wash away that residue, the silt or the dross of confusion and non-clarity, because when we're clear of mind and peaceful within, we can be peaceful with other people. Just like if you don't really love yourself, how can you love another? There's always going to be conditions. You know, like I love my hair, but I don't like my legs, you know. Well, it's kind of a package deal. You want to love it all. This is what you got, right? And this is where we live. This is where we live. Everybody's body, this is your home, right?
Yeah.
This is home. And it's so important to bring it back to the heart, because, well, if you look at the external world, we can see what we can create when the ego's running the show, which is just the mind.
Yeah.
There's opportunity everywhere.
Why don't you tell everybody how basically the way this course is set up and what they kind of can expect to get as they go through it?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. So there's 6 parts, or 6 chapters, as I like to call it. They're about 25 to 30 minutes each. So it's a nice amount of time. It's not too long. A reasonable amount of time to kind of stay focused. It's really good to do it when you're relaxed. It's not a good idea to press play and walk away, because you're going to miss a lot of the goodness in it. And so part 1 is called the echo. And that's really all about what's in your mind, you put there. You put it there. So if it doesn't feel good, you have the choice and the option to step into your own power, be large and in charge, and recognize that everything that is in my mind and my consciousness is I'm accountable for. The books I read, the entertainment, the relationships I have, whether they're toxic or tonic, whatever, you know, and that's what that's about. It kind of like shows that we have the choice. We're always in choice on what is in our psyche. And a good example of that would be, if you're going to watch a horror movie before you go to bed, probably going to have nightmares, probably, you know? Or if you're watching mainstream media, which is less than honest, you know, by far, then you might not have as much as a peaceful sleep. If you're reading a book maybe on something of interest to you that is more of a peaceful, you know, what is causing you to be peaceful rather than frantic. So that was the echo. And then part 2 is called Panic is Never a Good Strategy. When has panic ever been a good idea? No matter what happens, whether or not it's a problem with a loved one, a pet, or a family member, or something at work, freaking out is never a good idea, because when we're in fear, as you know, Seth, we're literally impaired. Our brain function is impaired, and we can't critically think for ourselves. So we make poor decisions. Or another way you could say it is, our intelligence is in the toilet. Our executive functions are like done. So that's about that. And it talks a little bit about judgment and fear, and how we, you know, usually when you're judging another, it's a mirror of your own behavior, right?
Yeah.
And then part 3, and then I'll take a pause if you want to chat a little bit about it. Part 3 is who's driving the bus? And that's really, you know, who is influencing your life? Who's your teacher? Who's your guide? Is it the small mind, the ego small mind with a small frame, a small idea of the world that's very limited and that wants to keep you small and judge everybody else as wrong? Or is it your higher self, your divine self, or your hearted self? Who's helping you? Who's driving the bus of your life? Who's really large and in charge? And I'll just take a pause there. I don't know if you want to expand a little bit on that before I jump into parts 4, 5, and 6, which are, you know, they build on the first 3, obviously.
The idea of the small mind and the higher self, the big thing, it's something that begins to happen naturally. You start from this place of who you think you are, and you begin to become more conscious of what you actually are, and you bridge the gap between the small part of you and the big part of you, and you eventually get used to it, and it becomes an experience that is very much representing totality, You know, it's your whole self. It's you with all your joy and creativity and trust and faith, but at the same time, in recognition of the trauma and things that happened to you, which you view as being perfect for what they were, because they were learning experiences. There were things that you had to go through in order to be able to tap into the greater potential that is in every single one of us.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Because when you think about it, we never learn if it's like Sunday and the weather's perfect and there's a beautiful breeze and everything's good. We don't learn then. We learn to challenge. And if we,
yeah.
when you start to embrace the larger aspect or the true self that we are, not just the physical body, you know,
Yeah.
we're human beings. We're not just the body. We have one. It's where we live while we're here and, you know, on the earth plane. But when we start to embrace that whole idea of, like you say, totality, then I totally lost my train of thought. I had a really good idea to respond to that.
It happens, don't worry.
It's more about, because once you discover that part, you start to remove naturally the limitations that you put upon yourself before with the smaller mind thinking. You
Yeah.
start to recognize, wait a minute, I think I am kind of powerful. I think that maybe some magic's happening here. I'm not that limited. I can do that. They said externally, they told me I was this, I was that, all those ideas of what they told us that we are. But when we start to look internally, it's kind of like it's kind of getting old as a quote, but it's an inside job. And the only way out is in. We don't evolve as a species or as an individual through the external world by everything out there. It's always within, right? And when you start to look within, everything just gets bigger. The potentials get bigger, that your world becomes bigger. It's not just between here and the grocery store and it's the same old, same old. Magic and miracles literally start to happen.
You brought up, it's such a great point, because as we are born and socially conditioned and raised and we live in society, we're taught to perceive the world in a way that's very narrow. Like we only see what's right in front of us. Like you just said it before, I'll see it when I believe it, kind of thing. Like everybody's focused on that, and we've forgotten that we have the ability to allow our awareness to expand in all directions outwardly instead of just focused like this. And when we allow our awareness to just expand outwardly, it connects to the greater coherent fields of the physical universe, which mean from the earth, the solar system. I know it sounds, most people listening to this like, yeah, whatever. But when you think about where we are, we're on a little tiny blue-green floating rock in the midst of a sea of infinity. And you think about how small everything that's ever happened in the face of humanity is compared to where we are, you start to be like, wait, what was I stressing out about?
Yeah.
What was I letting myself get? Oh, and it's just such a great way to neutralize this addiction to only, see, part of it is everybody thinks they know everything. That's the whole illusion.
And that's a really good question. Like we could ask the audience, like, what do you know right now? What do you know? Yeah. And like, just start with your body. What do you know? When your stomach is upset, do you know immediately exactly the remedy that you need? Most people don't.
Right.
Do we know how the body functions? Do we know why we make hormones? And do we even know how we breathe without even thinking of breathe? When we really ask that question, we don't know much about any of it, right? We're like such newbies. So the point is that when you start to go within and we start to expand and use the heart as your master rather than just a small mind, that's what I mean by your world gets bigger. So you stop with the limited thinking, go, oh, that guy out there said I can't, but I know in here I can, and I'm going to try it. And as you know, Seth, our beliefs shape our reality. They shape our experience, and they are very much driven by our perception. And when you start to go within, our perceptions change on everything. So we start to embrace, like you say, the magnificence of the cosmos. And we realize how tiny we are in this huge, expansive, mind-blowing, world.
Yeah. And the beauty of that is, as big as the physical universe appears to be, so too is how big our internal state of being when we focus. Either way, you could look out or you can go in, and no matter which direction you go, they lead to the same place, infinity.
Exactly.
And to be able to consciously surrender your ego, who you believe yourself to be based upon what you've been taught, your ability to surrender that in the face of feeling your quantum self, your expanded self, is the barometer by which you can measure how much you're growing. Like most people, if they start to have feelings of expansion, they'll be like, "Oh, no, I'm not going there." And they just stop. That means you're having resistance to the greater part of yourself.
Yeah.
But if you are like, okay, this is uncomfortable, I don't like it, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to trust. Whoa, that's really dark. I don't want to look at it. Oh, you know what? I'm going to try to look at it with eyes of love. I'm going to try to feel love that is greater than the fear that I'm currently facing. And when you can get to that point of loving with greater conviction than the sum total of all your fears, that's when you start transforming all of these parts that keep us stuck in belief, stuck in who we think we are and what we think this world is. It causes all of that to just dissipate and go away, because we aren't that. That's just the mind's construction that is essentially like a prison that we stay in. And we're not even conscious of the fact that we are choosing to stay in that prison.
It's literally
So what you're offering, what your course offers, is a way from somebody to look at, okay, I'm in prison. Because first thing is like self-denial, right? A lot of people don't want to admit that they're living in a prison, but
that's,
you've got to go ahead.
I was gonna say, and this is a great segue into like the next part, which is, well, the first thing I want to say about that's why part 2 is so good, because panic is never a good strategy. Everybody has to know that fear is a liar. Fear is a liar. It's part of source too, but it doesn't know it. And it only has the power that we give it. So, I mean, an example can be when the fire alarm goes off in an apartment building. You don't need to start freaking out and being in fear. It's like, okay, I think I need to exit the building. You can get startled by the alarm. Oh crap, I might, lose some stuff, but we don't need to be in fear and stay in the corner kind of thing and be frozen by taking action. And then the great segue of what you were sharing is part 4 is called the blind spot. And that's literally the stuff that we can't see. And so it was really interesting. When I wrote the course, I was given the titles first. And so when I was writing part 1, I had no idea necessarily, like all of the titles came first. So they came in sequence first. And then I get images, I get pictures. And then the universe is so amazing and so gracious and so part of the co-creative process when we operate from the heart, that I'm given real life examples to write these stories about. So when I wrote The Blind Spot, that was about stuff we can't see. Whether it's our own bad behavior, our own addictions, or maybe toxic behavior in another. It could be, your friends have been telling you that your loved one has been cheating on you and you don't want to know, you don't want to believe it, because it takes courage to look at this stuff, right? It's not, you got to be strong. You got to have strength. You got to muster up that fortitude inside. And, the example I was given is we were sitting on the back of our sailboat in the marina, and I'm on the back cockpit part, and the front of the boat overlooks the bay. It's really beautiful. And then the back of the boat, because we drive in, we don't have bow thrusters or any of that stuff. So we drive in, the back of the boat overlooks the gas dock, which can be the most entertaining dinner and a movie on a Sunday night kind of thing when folks are coming in from the weekend, and if it's windy and trying to park boats. I mean, it's a bit of a spectator sport. But there was a very fancy, beautiful boat, brand new. It must have been like $1.5 million or whatever. And my husband's in the cockpit, and he just says to me, "What is she doing?" And I look across the boat. And at first I noticed that there was a very beautiful woman, she had a gorgeous beach wrap on. So you notice, right, this fancy 48-foot boat. And when he says that, I look over, she is on the boat, on the gas dock. They're fueling the boat, and she lit a cigarette.
Oh,
right? He said that, and I just yelled, "Don't do that." And then the
Yeah.
guy, of course, swore at her and whatever. So that's a blind spot. Sometimes we take action without thinking, right? With that. So that was the whole point. Like, that was one of the examples I used. And sometimes you don't see toxic behavior. And sometimes your brain will literally filter out something that's been introduced that you're not used to seeing. Could be your partner had a beard forever, then shaves it off, and it takes you a bit to notice it. You don't see it right away, right? So the brain literally filters it out. But the biggest blind spot in that example is that we're not separate from each other, the earth, or from our source. That's the biggest humanity blind spot. And then part 5 was the greatest show on earth happens behind the eyes. When you think about our experience, all of it is internal. Everything happens on the inside, right? Really. And then part 6 is the longest journey we'll ever take is from the head to the heart. And then, as I say, that's why it takes a bit to make that decision to get there. And it's usually something's blown up in your world, or you're so overwhelmed, if something else goes wrong, you're going to lose it. And that's usually when you're like, I got to do something. This isn't working for me. It's playing tricks on me, my monkey mind. There's songs like, there's one that Pink sings, right? I think it's, "We're not broken, just bent." And we're not broken, just bent, and we can learn to love again. I'm not a singer. Learn to love again. But when she's telling that story,
sounded good though. You actually did sound good.
It's something, and I think the lyrics, she's saying, you don't lie as close to me as you used to. And he's basically, when the fellow comes in, he's like, "I don't know where all this is coming from. It's all in your mind," right? We can literally create a story in our own mind and get us so wrapped up in a tizzy, and none of it is real.
Yes.
So that's why this is.
Well, and that's what we are encouraged to do. That's the crazy thing about it. That's learned behavior. We're taught to become consumers of a capitalistic society because that's what supports the economic growth. And so a lot of our identification and who we think we are is based upon the products that we use. And we are the ones that end up becoming products of society.
Yeah,
it's one big loop.
Totally. I think I used this as an example in there. When have you ever had a commercial say, "You don't need to buy any of our products. You're perfect just as you are," right? No. You need.
We should make that.
I know we should.
We should literally make that commercial and be like, "Hey, just anyway."
You don't need to buy any of. You don't need to buy Tiffany's or Gucci or whatever. You're perfect just as you are.
But you need to invest that energy that you're looking at me speaking right now into yourself. Turn it right back around and start feeling your heart.
Yeah, because it really, the big thing, right, is you can't change what you can't see.
Yeah.
You can't change what you can't see. So the biggest part of this, if you can become self-aware, and it's not like policing your thoughts. I mean, it kind of sort of is, because you're large and in charge. And I've heard people say often, I'm responsible for what I say in the world, but you are responsible for how you receive it. Yeah. Because I can say something with pure intention and meaning something, very kind-hearted and compassionate. But if you're not at peace with yourself, you might take it personally. And what did she mean by that? Why would she say that? That hurt my feelings. And then it gets into that whole spin of misunderstanding, miscommunication, which is usually the root of all of our relationship challenges, is not understanding, not comprehending, right? So yeah, I mean, we've been conditioned from day one. Be afraid, you suck, you'll be nothing without my product.
Yeah.
Spend $150,000 on your education, and then maybe you'll get a job making $40 an hour. Like it's upside
Just
down.
so you can pay off the debt that you borrowed to do it. Yeah.
Right,
It's
right.
one big system that keeps us stuck. It's prison.
It is, yeah. So this is why I created this, because it creates a bit of a map, as you said, to get out of to free yourself from your self-imprisoned mind and start actually creating your life on purpose by staying in a positive mood, vibe, a vibration, moment to moment to moment, no matter what is happening. Because every time we're faced with someone, if we have an encounter with someone who perhaps we would judge or observe as less than pleasant, it's an opportunity for us, okay, what am I being asked of here? Because the person freaking out certainly doesn't need you to hate them. What they do need, likely, is your compassion and your kindness and your love. Because we've also been taught that too, right, Seth? Love is intimate, love is romantic, but it's actually the teachers that I work with and learn from, they say love is not an emotion, it's a current of being. And so I love you because you're part of source. You're a life creation and you're my brother. I might not like you much. I might not want you to come for dinner and have tea and go horseback riding or what have you with you, but that's okay. But I still love you because you're part of life and creation.
Yes.
Which means I honor and respect you, and I'm not going to do you harm. But we were taught it was kind of the other way around. Well, I like the guy, but I don't love him. Right. So it's almost like everything is inverted. Everything's mixed up and sideways, and which we already know. And this is the beauty of the reality that we're living in now, is we are witnessing literally the collapse of the fall of the Roman Empire, or another way I like to say it, Earth is under renovations, and so is humanity's consciousness. And when that's happening, things aren't really that pretty. It's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Right. And that's from the campaign. That's from that comedy with Will Ferrell. It's a mess. It is a bit of a mess right now as we witness the world. So this also helps people to let that go. Let go what's happening 4,000 miles away, which doesn't mean we're not compassionate and aware, but it means if you can focus on your internal reality and get that in order and peaceful, no matter what. I mean, what happens if you've got billions of peaceful people on the planet? The idea of war would never, ever happen. It would be utter insanity. We would never agree to it. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, like there'd be nothing that would do that. But to make that point of what you're saying, it's like, okay, war is chaos, right? Like it's chaos. And to not be war, to be in a state of peace would be coherence.
Yep.
And when you look at reality, right? When you look at nature, you see that both chaos and coherence exist. Chaos exists in the form of, like, say in space, like a star explodes, right? It's got to be really chaotic and just a really intense event. It explodes, but then after it explodes, all the pieces coming out of it start to slow down, and they're captured by the whole of the coherent universe or galaxy or solar system that it's in. So there needs to be both forces, but there's more coherence than there is chaos.
Absolutely.
Right now, we are living as though there were more chaos than there is coherence. And so that's created great imbalance. Right. And it becomes
although it's absolutely divine ordered chaos. And an example to bring the cosmic down to earth, what a wonderful example with the star exploding.
It's a teaching.
It's like a forest fire. At the time, it's like, oh my God, we're losing hectares of land, but it burns through the dross and the debris, and it creates room for new birth and new life. Or a tornado or a hurricane, use a hurricane that's Mother Nature's way of pruning the forest.
Yeah.
And nothing is ever wasted, because a tree that falls and dies becomes a perfect home for all the little creatures. So you're right. We live in such a perfect harmony. And what we're witnessing right now is chaos and destruction, and it's for our benefit. We might not, like I say, we're under renovations. So when you renovate a house, everything's ripped apart. There's crap everywhere. Nothing is working. You have no sink, you have no kitchen counter. You got to go use the outhouse to go to the washroom. You don't have a toilet, right? Everything is a mess. But once they start to settle, once the dust settles, then we can start to rebuild. And that's the exciting part of what, we're at the precipice of the destruction part. And that's the other reason why I wrote this course, is because we need tools to deal. Like, life is stressful anyway. And then take away the external, anything that we're used to counting on. Like right now, we can't plan next month, let alone next week, because everything is in flux and such change. So if you can find a way to be peaceful, be in the eye of the storm.
And that's really what it always comes down to. And that's what I loved about your course, is it speaks that language in a way that's very easy to understand, and in a way that somebody can consistently apply, so that they can begin to embody these states of heart-based, coherent states of awareness. There's a talk recently, I didn't listen to it, but somebody told me about it. I think Zach Bush gave the talk, but he compared the planets in our solar system as though they were chakras. Okay. And the Earth would be the heart chakra. And to me, like, again, I didn't listen to the talk, so I don't want to paraphrase or make up anything. But when I heard somebody explain that part of me, tell me that part, it just made perfect sense to me. Like, when you think about the Earth is the heart in this system that we are, then isn't it our responsibility to really uphold the love for this planet, for ourselves, for each other in general, beyond just the human notion of love? Like you were saying before, humans have this notion of love that is idealistic, romantic, sexual, all those things. But love, the actual force of love, those are just expressions or potential expressions of love. Real love is a wild, super powerful, incomprehensible force of creativity. It is a force of creativity so great that we're not consciously able to even comprehend it. However, when we're in a heart-based state, which is what you're teaching people how to do in your course, you begin to have glimpses or activating parts of your awareness that allow you to live in a way where you can start to feel that kind of love. And that's the real love. Like, that's what love really is about. When you know that God or the universe or whatever name you want to give to that which is causing every single one of our hearts to beat, when you have a conscious relationship to that and you know it, that's
when your brain changes. So that's why this is kind of a gateway series. It gets the listener to the point where I'm going to make the choice to get out of my head and let my heart become my master. And then my mind can become a servant of the heart. And so all actions I take in the world reflect that. And because, I mean, I don't know, is there anybody out there that does not think that this planet is so beautiful? I mean, there are things that are just, the creativity of the creator is mind-blowing. Like, just go from a dolphin to a butterfly to a wasp and a python and a donkey. Like, the creativity is, and I mean, that's only what we've seen. I bet you there's half the stuff in the ocean we don't even know exists yet. So then, and that's the other thing that's so beautiful about the Earth as the heart of the universe, or the heart of this solar system, or this realm, as Nikola Tesla said, The heart, see, again, I lost I go off on these little ideas and I'm like,
Oh, that's
damn, I
right.
forgot what I was going to say. But when you start to, when you operate from the heart, you begin to realize and comprehend that humanity's diversity is actually, it's what makes us deliciously special, because it's the honoring of our differences and our diversity that is so magnificent. And if we can comprehend that and get along with ourselves here on the planet and recognize all that diversity, what happens when you get off planet? You know, like now you're getting, now we're talking out there. But it's about honoring the individuation and recognizing also that even though we're different, we have a lot in common. Like we all have a heartbeat, we all have DNA, we all bleed, we all have sadness, we all have love, we all love connection and social community. Like it doesn't matter what color you are or what religion or what direction you pray to. We have way more in common than we probably honor and recognize. Right?
Everybody, yes. I mean, from an elemental level, we are all 60 to 70% water. Like almost every one of us, we are all water-based beings with consciousness. What is consciousness? Who even knows? But we do know that it's some kind of bioelectric force that is animating the water molecules of the body. I mean, it's so incredible what we are. And when we allow ourselves to ponder this, either alone or like you and I are doing together right now, and get others really considering how awe-inspiring this all truly is, then suddenly we break through the barriers of societal conditioning and we begin to witness ourselves both as we are and as we have the potential to be. And that is what I get up every morning looking forward to seeing how it's going to unfold, because it's miracle.
We didn't get born and we're told from day one, like, Seth, my darling, you are an absolute perfect miracle. Like if we could get folks that are listening to look in the mirror and go, recognize how much of a miracle you are. You've got trillions of cells that know exactly what to do. You don't have to remember to breathe or beat your heart. You don't have to remember any of that stuff, right? Thank God. You don't have to grow your fingernails or grow muscles or make amino acids or proteins. All of that happens through the miracle of your expression as spirit in form. You can't take the spirit out of the form. In fact, I think I read a book. I guess I'm going to give her a bit of a plug, but it was by Julia Carter, and it's called World Bridgers. And I think she made, I hope I'm not going to mangle the quote, but it's basically the physical body is like the pinnacle of the spiritual identity of the spirit. Like this is the creation of the magnificence of our spirit. That's how amazing we are. And we forget that because we're too busy being told by the corporation that we suck if we don't buy these pair of shoes, right? To bring it right back down to, complete silliness. But when you can mind your mind, when you can get this straight, when you can become a master of this, which doesn't mean, as I say, that you're controlling your thoughts and you're perfect. It's far from that. It means that you still express anger, but you're going to do it in a way that you don't need to punch somebody over the head. Like we watched last weekend on, I didn't even know the Oscars was going on, but of course the whole Will Smith thing was going on all over the place. But if you think about it, if you can't get along with somebody and you got to go funk them, come on, man, you got to use your words. Use your words so we can respond and express. I think they call it righteous anger. If somebody is harming another, it's fair to be annoyed about it. It's not appropriate behavior, but we can snap back out of it, not stay in that negative funk, offset all those, cortisol, as we were talking about in the beginning, which most people know is a stress hormone. It's great when you're running away from a tiger. It's not good when you're arguing with your spouse, right? We already talked about that. So you got to offset that, neutralize that as a tonic, which is what helps create coherence. Because what a lot of folks don't know is they think the heart is just the pump. It just pumps a bunch of blood. Well, no, actually it governs. It's actually large and in charge. And what you and I have talked about before, how you get into coherence is when you're in that state of internal peace and joy, or how I like to share with people, you're in your happy place. Because when
Yeah.
you're in your happy place, you can deal.
Yeah.
You can deal with no matter what opportunities or challenges are placed before you. So if you get that straight and let the heart lead, we could change the world in literally a heartbeat or a breath or the snap of your fingers.
Yeah.
Just a little more love and a little bit more kindness and a little bit more. I'm not going to say that because that's not, that's not really what I want this to end. What's the highest thought? What's the best action I can take in this moment for the best outcome, rather than, that kind of, so that's how that was created. And it was really fun to write it. And as I say, I think I shared with you before that given the pictures, I was given the images, I was definitely gifted with some of the language, because I go back and I read it and I'm like, you've done that before, right? You'll say something and someone will say, oh my God, that was amazing. What did you say? And you're like, I don't know what I just said. I don't know what I just said. You get gifted.
Yeah. That's most of the time.
Yeah, right. And they're usually really brilliant. It's like, I don't know what I said. What did I say?
Well, and that is what really that is something that everybody has the ability to do. That, our flow state, right? They call it the flow state or whatever. Some people call it channeling. There's lots of different expressions for what it could mean. But really what it is just us being fully present and engaged with life, our reality as it is. And we're having a moment. We're like right in the moment, enjoying it, loving it. And so your natural brilliance just comes through.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to live in a way where that becomes the more predominant aspect of our expression of reality, as opposed to the fight, flight, or fawning response that sadly most people are stuck in. Most human beings on this planet right now, whether they recognize it or not, are in a low to mid to even high grade state of constant upset. And when you become conscious of, oh my God, wow, I'm actually living with a lot of fear, because denial is the first step. Like we're talking about it.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
Right.
So when we first begin to acknowledge that we have a problem, meaning we're addicted to the stress hormones in our body, then we can start reconditioning ourselves in a way to move beyond that. And it's like you said, getting out of your head and into the heart. And then suddenly when you're in the heart long enough, then suddenly the head has a much different function and a much different purpose, because the heart and the head are aligned.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're working together.
Yeah, what we're talking about here is you're now able to hear the intelligence of the heart, because when we are in a state of coherence, which is our happy place, when we're in gratitude and joy, when we're in the now moment, the heart literally sends clear signals to the brain, rather than, trying to tune into a radio station that's static and you can't clear. Because when we are in that state of joy, like I said, we were not constructed to be in a state of anger all the time or in a state of stress. We were constructed to be in a state of joy, because we are masters at creating.
Yes.
Like
and that state, what you just said, like the state of joy that we're all wired to be, isn't that much different than a child who's in a state of awe and wonder and innocence. We can be like that as adults, but look at how fast it changed for most of us. Everything's like, oh my God, it's so wonderful, it's amazing.
Well, because as adults, we want to know everything that's going to happen, right? And a child is like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen, right? I wonder. That sounds fun. You don't know what it is going to be. But as we get older, we get conditioned again. We have to know what's going to happen, have to plan. This is going to happen, then that, then that, then that. And isn't it a lot more fun and adventurous when we can live in the now moment, be more spontaneous, go, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going. I don't know what I'm going to become, but I am, which is a quote from my guides. I like that one. I use that a lot. But, the adventures for the weekend are like, I don't know what's going to happen, Seth, but it's going to be fun.
Oh,
that's what I intend. I intend it to be amazing.
yeah.
So yeah, we could talk forever on this topic.
Oh, we could go forever. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're starting to get into it now too, but that's all right. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
There'll be plenty. We're talking about infinity here, so there's no end to it.
Exactly. Good point. Exactly.
So with that said, thank you for coming on today and having this conversation with me and this connection and this flow. And hopefully it inspires others to do something similar. And I want to emphasize to everybody, Paula put together a course. It's really, really inexpensive compared to the value that it offers. So the links and everything are going to be below this video. Check it out. I mean, she's practically giving it away for what it teaches you to do. Now, it's going to be up to you to take what she offers and apply it to yourself. You're going to have to do that work, but she says it in a way that gives you clear steps of how to do it. And if you do that bit by bit over time, you're going to start feeling and knowing and experiencing the rewards of your efforts to improve yourself. And that is worth more than when you are in a state of wellness, it is worth more than anything else in the world.
There's no, you can't put a value on it. And the other thing is it's contagious, because joy, wonder, excitement, and creativity is contagious. And that's when we can start to collaborate and create things together, because we need each other.
Yeah.
We need each other.
Community equals immunity.
Exactly. Community boosts immunity. Yes, we need each other. Humanities are human. We're social creatures. We're meant to work together, create together, and create beauty here on the planet. What can I make? What can I create that would make your life better? If we live like that, again, this world will indeed transition to the world that we are creating in our hearts. We've seen the shit show the mind can do all on its own when it runs amok. But when we work from the heart, magic and miracles happen. And as Einstein said, there's only two ways to live your life. And that says if nothing is a miracle or if everything is a miracle. So I'm very grateful for you having me on today, Seth. I adore you.
Thank you. I'm super grateful that you reached out and that we've connected and that we've had this ongoing connection. And depending on when this comes out, just so everybody knows, what's the date that we're doing? We're doing another event. We're doing a roundtable event. You, me,
Laura,
Magenta Pixie, Laura Eisenhower, and Dr. Christian Northrup.
Yes, that's on Thursday, the 7th of April. That's actually next Thursday, a week today.
So tune into that, everybody. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And we'll probably do it on Zoom. We may do it live. We'll see.
I think it's recorded. No, it's going to be recorded.
It'll be pre-recorded.
So it'll probably, hopefully, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully this will be up by the weekend, which should be today is the 31st of March. And then maybe next weekend. So yeah, we'll, that'll be a fun conversation, because we're going to expand a little bit more into community and creating more of the world that we want for each other, rather than what they have.
Then whoever has planned, whatever.
We're responsible for the end result of this renovation.
Exactly. So make sure everybody, you tune in, be on lookout for that, because that's a lot of really incredible individuals coming together to discuss the type of world that most of us want to be in and live in. So
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Yep.
Bye now.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, hang on. I got to stop recording here. Hang on. This is why it's good to